The snow fell gently on Maple Street, painting the quiet neighborhood in a serene, sparkling white. Christmas lights danced in the frosty air as homes glowed with warmth. Wreaths adorned every door, and the world felt like a snow globe come to life. It was looking like the perfect Christmas Eve, a night filled with magic and joy. But sometimes, the stillest nights carry the deepest secrets. Maya didn't think much of a routine walk, just a few moments outside to breathe in the cold air, admire the lights, and lose herself in the festive calm. But as she strolled past the familiar houses, a strange feeling prickled at the back of her mind. It was a tiny thing at first, just a momentary doubt. It began with Mr. Harris, her neighbor. Always busy, always decorating, always a staple of the neighborhood Christmas spirit. Except when she waved, he didn't wave back. And when she turned back toward his house moments later, something had shifted. Not by much, but enough to make her pause. What happened next would shake the very foundation of what Maya thought was real. A glitch in time, an unexplainable loop. A broken moment that felt like it tore through the fabric of reality itself. Was it a trick of the mind? A cruel illusion brought on by exhaustion and the quiet of the snow? Or had the world actually reset? What Maya discovered next would haunt her. A glimpse at something that should never have been possible. And now the question remains, what happens when you realize the world isn't as stable as you think? You're about to step into a story that begins with snowflakes and Christmas lights and spirals into a chilling descent into uncertainty and dread. Stay close, because what comes next will leave you questioning everything. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a video. This is the Christmas Glitch. It was Christmas Eve, and the small neighborhood of Maple Street was covered in a blanket of snow. The houses stood aglow with twinkling lights, wreaths on doors, and festive decorations in every window. The streets were quiet, except for the occasional car passing by, and the soft, rhythmic sound of snowflakes falling. It was the kind of night that felt magical, a peaceful moment of respite after a long year. Maya stepped out of her cozy home, wrapped warmly in her favorite scarf and gloves, eager for a brief walk to take in the Christmas spirit. The cold air bit at her cheeks, but it was refreshing. The world seemed to slow down, as though the snow itself had muffled all the sound. As she wandered down the street, she admired the decorations on the houses she passed. It was a quiet tradition of hers to take a moment to step outside on Christmas Eve, letting the calm of the night settle her mind. As she approached her neighbor's house, she noticed Mr. Harrison, a man in his 70s struggling to hang a string of lights on his porch. A yearly tradition. He was a regular fixture in the neighborhood, known for his meticulous decorations and his annual quest to make his house the most festive on the block. Maya smiled and waved at him from the sidewalk, but Mr. Harrison didn't respond. He continued to adjust the lights, oblivious to her presence. Maya paused for a moment, puzzled by his lack of acknowledgement, but didn't think much of it. He was likely just focused on the task. She continued down the street, the soft crunch of snow beneath her boots, the only sound breaking the silence. A few moments later, she turned back, deciding it was time to head home. As she walked back toward her house, she looked up again. The scene before her was exactly the same as it had been when she left. The snow falling gently, the lights still twinkling on every house. But there was something off. Mr. Harrison was still standing on his porch, adjusting the same string of lights, in exactly the same position. Maya stopped dead in her tracks. She blinked and rubbed her eyes. She couldn't have walked that far in just a few minutes. Could she? She'd only been out for a short amount of time, yet everything seemed eerily unchanged. The same snow, the same lights, and Mr. Harrison still on the porch, with his hands wrapped around the same strand of lights. Confusion swept over her as she glanced up and down the street, making sure she wasn't imagining things. There was no one else in sight. just the stillness of the night and the same strange, unsettling scene. Maya hesitated before walking back toward Mr. Harrison's porch, but when she reached the edge of his property, she called out to him. The old man turned around, a smile creasing his face. He would reply, "Oh, Maya, Merry Christmas, dear. You're out for a walk in this lovely weather?" Maya stood frozen, her heart racing. She felt a strange shiver crawl down her spine. She would go on to say, "I just saw you down the street putting up lights." She stammered, trying to make sense of what was happening. Mr. Harrison looked at her, clearly confused. "What do you mean, dear? I've been right here on the porch the whole time." Maya's mind spun as she tried to reconcile the situation. There was no way she could have imagined seeing him earlier. She had passed by his house not 5 minutes ago, yet now he claimed to have been on the porch all along. Her stomach tightened, and an uncomfortable chill settled in her chest. She forced a smile, trying to mask her unease that was rapidly growing inside her. She muttered, then quickly turned around and walked briskly back toward her house. Her mind raced. Had she lost track of time? Was she just tired, imagining things? She could still feel the eerie weight of the moment hanging over her. It was as if the world had skipped and then reset, like a glitch in a computer game. She hurried inside, shutting the door behind her with a sigh of relief. The warmth of her home, with its softly glowing lights and the faint smell of cinnamon in the air, comforted her momentarily. But something didn't feel right. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Mr. Harrison. The way he had been in 2 places at once. The way the world had seemed to freeze and then reset, like as if we were in a video game, unable to break free. Maya glanced out the window, needing to shake off the strange feeling that lingered. As she looked toward Mr. Harrison's house, her breath caught in her throat. There he was, adjusting the same string of lights. Maya stared wide-eyed, her mind racing as she processed what she was seeing. She was certain that she had just seen him on the other side only moments ago. Yet, here he was positioned on the opposite side now, working on the same lights. She blinked, rapidly rubbing her eyes, and looked again. Mr. Harrison was still there, doing the exact same thing. The world around her suddenly felt disjointed. Maya could no longer ignore the creeping suspicion that something was very wrong. She sank onto the couch, her heart pounding as she tried to make sense of it. Had she just walked into some kind of time loop? Had she been trapped in a glitch? One that had reset reality itself? The room felt colder now, despite the warmth of the fireplace crackling in the corner. She felt a tightness in her chest, the sensation of being watched. It was as if she wasn't alone in the room. She glanced around, but there was no one there. Just the soft hum of the heater and the faint creak of the house settling. As the moments passed, Maya began to feel increasingly paranoid. What if Mr. Harrison was trapped in the same loop as her? What if everyone in the neighborhood was experiencing the same thing, and she was the only one who had noticed? The thought made her skin crawl. What was going on? Whatever was going on, she had to figure it out. She couldn't just sit there and let it keep happening. She needed to break whatever strange pattern she had found herself in. Maya grabbed her coat and hurried back to the door. But just as she was about to open it, the lights in the house flickered. The room went dark for a split second before the power returned. And when the lights came back on, Maya felt a sharp drop in the temperature. It wasn't just the cold from outside, it was deeper. An unnatural chill that seemed to settle in the very bones of the house. Suddenly, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She wasn't sure if it was the glitch or something more sinister. Was she being watched, or was she simply living in a moment she couldn't escape from? Her pulse quickened as the silence in the house pressed down on her like a physical weight. Her eyes darted around the room as if waiting for something to happen, something to break the tension. She turned back to the window, staring out at Mr. Harrison's house. As her gaze shifted to the porch, she saw him again. But this time it was different. Mr. Harrison was looking straight at her. Maya's breath caught in her throat. He couldn't possibly see her from this distance. He was too far away. But his eyes were fixed on her, unblinking, as if he knew she was watching him. Then, as if on cue, the lights flickered again. For a second, the house was plunged into darkness, and Maya's heart skipped a beat. When the lights came back on, she turned to look outside. But Mr. Harrison was no longer on the porch. In fact, the entire scene had changed. The snow outside was falling in perfect symmetry, as though nothing had moved in the last few moments. She looked back at the reflection of herself in the window. It was there, but this time something was different. Her reflection wasn't quite right. In the glass, she was standing, but in reality, she was sitting on the couch. Her eyes wide in terror, Maya gasped, her pulse racing. She jumped up from the couch and backed away from the window, her mind struggling to understand what she was seeing. Had she really just seen her reflection move without her? Was this still the same night? The reflection flickered, and she caught sight of it again. Her reflection was slowly stepping toward the window, but Maya wasn't moving. The glitch had reset. Her reflection continued to move toward the glass. And suddenly, the reflection smiled. It was no longer her. The lights flickered, the snow continued to fall. The same perfect rhythmic dance that should have been peaceful, but the feeling lingered. Cold, sharp, and unnatural. Maya's breath came fast as her mind raced, trying to piece together what she had seen, what she had felt. But then came that reflection, that smile. It wasn't hers. It wasn't supposed to be there. Something had broken, and the question haunted her. Was she alone? Or had the glitch spread further than just a single moment? The snow outside pressed in, the lights from Mr. Harrison's porch, twinkling as though mocking her, as though daring her to dive deeper into the truth. The chill in the air wasn't just the winter's bite anymore. It was deeper, and it was coming for her. But who else could she trust? Could she escape the loop? Could anyone? The answer slipped just out of reach as the world shimmered around her, unstable. A mirror reflecting something far more sinister. And then, the lights flickered again. What happens when reality itself begins to glitch? The answers are out there, but at what cost? Be sure not to close your eyes for too long. You may just step into another reality.